Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of Through the Fire. I am your host, Ryan Wickline, and today we are joined by a very special guest. He is a Marine, serial entrepreneur, and author, Mr. Jay Setchell. How you doing today, Jay?
Hey Ryan, I'm hanging in there, brother. I'm doing good. You know,
Great. So you have a pretty fascinating story. So the number one question the audience is probably wondering, who is Jay Setchell?
I sometimes I wonder that myself. I'd be better off. Um, well, I mean, I think the thing that's the name of your podcast, Through the Fire, exemplifies my life pretty good because when I was 17 years old, I came down out of a silo and almost got ground up by a feeding auger, and all it did was break my right ankle and tear my boot up and stuff and cut my leg open and stuff like that. Nothing big. And I dove out into the snowbank and it was like 10 below zero. So it kind of helped a little bit. But, I should have another half a second, I would have been ground up like sausage. But I got out of that, did that, went in the Marine Corps, um, was involved in a very bad car accident. I was driving, I was taking another Marine back to base that had been severely injured. He was part of a criminal intelligence unit that he worked for me or with me. And a semi had pulled across the road in front of us and had no side lights or markers on, nothing. It was nighttime. 56 years ago, this last November 12th. So 6 days ago, 56 years ago, I died my first time. And I spent a year in the Naval Hospital, did the coma thing and then back in the coma, third degree burns and lots of stuff. So that was a hell of a fight and a very, very violent out of body experience. And got out of that, rehabbed a little bit longer. Um, I started I started three different companies after within about 6 months of getting out of the hospital after a year. And then I had a drunk hit me almost head on a very narrow two-lane highway out in the middle of the cornfields and stuff. And he didn't have a seatbelt on, got thrown out of his car, a pickup truck, and got run over by his own truck and killed. And I rolled multiple times and down in a very deep ditch up against the railroad tracks and out. We didn't have cell phones and pagers and stuff like that back then. And the next car coming down the road had seen what happened way ahead, and it went down and saw I was in the car yet. I didn't get thrown out. His body was apparently on the road, as I understand it. And they went to the next town, got somebody, and they got somebody, and they come up and, they finally got me out of the car. But I was leaving. I'd left my body. I was up in the sky. I was ascending, I guess, into heaven. It was quiet. I don't remember any pain. And they took a couple of the guys that were there. I could see them, and they were sticking needles into me and into them, flowing blood into me because I'd bled out real bad. It took the left side of the car off. The motor was out of it. My arm was mostly gone. Punctured ribs or punctured lungs again. And but I got through that. I hung in there. They got me back. I don't remember going back into my body, but I remember coming alive, coming to in the hospital. Got out of that, continued back rehabbing a little bit. Well, that took a few months, but kept back with different companies and starting different things, and I got a job working for a company out of Charlotte, North Carolina that as a regional manager for 6 states up in the north, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, Illinois, all that area. And unfortunately, they never sent me a paycheck except once, and it was for like $18,000. And I didn't see another one, so I took their van that they provided me, and I parked it at an undisclosed regional airport and dropped the keys in it and called them and told them I quit and walked away from it. And I started working for GTE for the Yellow Pages back when people had Yellow Pages. A lot of people out here don't know what they are anymore, but they're still around, but not like they were. They were the computer of the day, and that's where you got all your information. And that worked out real good. I started that was February 1st, 1981, and on July 4th, 1981, I was married 3 weeks to that day, and I jumped in a swimming pool and broke my neck in 4 places and drowned. And I I I really don't remember jumping in even, and but I remember drowning. Um, and the best way I could explain it to anybody because people ask, what is that like? And I go like, it wasn't terrifying. It was the fact that I had come to the realization that I was 31 and a half years old, and I knew I had to breathe. And you've been in a swimming pool where somebody, tries to talk in your ear, like they go, "Hey, Ryan," or whatever. It sounds like blah, blah, blah. It's kind of garbled. And that's what it sounds like when you drown. To me, that's what it sounded like. And everything went dark, instant. It was just black, black and quiet. I don't remember going up any tube or seeing a light or anything. But what I did experience was it felt like I was inside of a vortex, like you see the movies with a tornado with the spinning, and I felt like I was in that. And if I wasn't turning, but I was just accelerating through it. And at that point, I don't know, I was under the water about 7.5 to 8 minutes, they said. I was starting to turn black and blue and from the lack of oxygen. And a young lady jumped in and she couldn't get me up. And then a guy realized that something was wrong and he got in. And anyhow, I don't remember any of that, obviously. And I remember coming to 3 or 4 days later, and the doctor was sitting there, and they had bolts in my skull here and this apparatus on my head and stuff, and they told me what had happened because I didn't know what happened, and he told me I was stay in this apparatus, and they put halo cast bolted in my skull in 4 different places, and which I still didn't know what it was, and hopefully, and they would send me to a rehab center, and hopefully some function would return. But it was very doubtful, and I would probably remain paralyzed from my shoulders down the rest of my life. And
Crazy.
that terrified me. So as far as having been through the fire, and I've had 73 surgeries. I had my last surgery about 5 months ago, another back surgery. I've had 15 back surgeries. So, some people when they tell me I've had a back surgery I really hurt, or I've had two, I go, oh, really? It's like kind of like I look at a lot of it with humor. I have to because I've been through so much, and my left arm works pretty good. My left wrist is fused, but that's kind of what it is. I mean, my right wrist and my left elbow are the only two parts of my body that haven't been broken, rotted, fused, pinned, replaced, or something. Both hips, both femurs, both tibia, I mean, ankles, jaws. I had 32 facial fractures from the first car accident, um, third-degree burns, punctured lungs, shoulders surgery. So, and that's why I say I think I've been through the fire.
Yeah.
I I've been through the fire.
So is all you done back surgeries because of the accidents?
Yeah, it's I that uh, the first accident was so bad when we hit that semi. Uh, they said we were on our brakes, and there were cars behind us that were witnesses to the Texas or the California State Troopers, and they said, "Oh no, he wasn't." We were all going together, kind of down the road, all actually a couple miles an hour under the speed limit. It was nighttime and you couldn't see the semi at all. There were no side lights, no reflectors, no nothing. And he had pulled off out of the side of a area where they had loaded him, and he was trying to turn onto the highway. One headlight was out and the other one was covered with dirt. So, but we hit so hard, and they also believe that my broken neck, my they looked back and figured my neck was probably from the whiplash from hitting that steering wheel so hard, and my skull getting crushed in with my TBI, um, that I very well probably had a slight hairline fracture that never healed correctly or something. And when I jumped in and hit that pool, it was like driving a hammerhead down on a handle, and it just multiplied it, made it worse. And you know, but the back surgeries, yeah, it's not. I'm fused from T10 all the way down past S3. So I,
Mm.
you know, it, I got a lot of pain. I know
Yeah.
that.
What have all those near death experiences shown you about your life?
That God wants me here. I really do. I look back and thank God seriously every day for what I've been through. And I look ahead and trust him that he's going to keep leading me down the right path. I'll be 76 New Year's Eve. So, like I say, last Wednesday, yeah, a week ago tomorrow was my 56th anniversary of dying my first time. So, and then last 4th of July was my 44th anniversary of dying my third time. So, and I don't know. I think I'm pretty fortunate, but it's taught me about everything is that you can delve ahead and continue on in life, being resilient, having courage, having the grit, having the determination that you're here for a purpose, and a lot of it is I believe in helping other people, and I think the more people you help, the better person you become. And I really I believe that with all my heart. And I think that you got to believe, Ryan, you have to believe there's 10 two-letter words that they're great words, and people should write them down and put them on their monitor, put them on their refrigerator, their mirror, or something. And they're real simple. It's if it is to be, it is up to me. If it is to be, it is up to me. Because I can't do your job. Whatever you do, whatever you've done, more than likely I couldn't do it because of my physical issues. But yet, how many people would go and want to be through what I've been through? You know, and I had a son. One of my sons here many years ago he was always getting in trouble doing stuff, and he said something about. I said, "You want to get your driver's license? Are you kidding me? You got to straighten up. You got to get your grades right, son. You ain't getting anything. You're not getting anything." And and I said, and I gave him the 10 two-letter words back then. That's 35 years ago, more and longer than that. And and I told him, because I can't come take your driver's test for you. I can't go get in the car with the state trooper or whoever, the driver's test person, and go drive your car for you. And so when I talked to him here about a month ago about something, he said, I was thinking the other day of something I needed to get done, and I thought about the 10 two-letter words. And I thought, no kidding, that was kind of cool. I mean, that's been 35 years ago, and he still remembered them.
Yeah.
So, but that's kind of it. But I've liked starting multiple businesses. I've taken several businesses, started them. It helps other people, promotes products. I believe in quality 100%. Getting it, doing it now, doing it completely, and following through. Now, I don't know if that's the way I was raised, which it is. I think some. The Marine Corps certainly got that pounded into my head. Um, but I've taken several into seven figures and eight figures, and I'm involved now as a major partner in a company that's national, and we're going international. And I'm 30 years older than the next oldest guy, so they kind of look at me as the old man, the mentor, but it's funny that you look back and I see things or I mention things or we talk about stuff and they go, that's a great idea. Or where did that come from? Well, it was stuff we did 50 years ago that has been lost. Too many people, I think, they expect to get all their answers from Google instead of going out and learning the trade or learning it the hard way.
Yeah.
You learn a lot through mistakes and errors.
Yeah. Failures are big. Like, why do you think that people lack developing the resilience and the grit that you talk about, and why it's so often overlooked nowadays?
Uh, I, I thought about that just recently in a conversation, and I mean, I actually have thought about it quite a bit, and I believe it's just because everybody's given stuff. Not everybody, but the biggest part of people are saying, "Oh, well, here, take this," and it's not trying to get into any political side one way or the other, but how many people want us? They want their college paid for. Okay, I whatever. I mean, I'm not judging, but it's the issue is that they want to go to college. They should pay for their college. I mean, I don't disagree that college costs a lot, but the biggest issue, and I've interviewed a lot of people over my life, and I find that probably 95 to 96% of the people that go to school to get a degree in a certain area don't actually ever enter that field that they got their degree in. My stepdaughter got a degree in uh, fashion merchandising. She's other than going shopping once in a while, she doesn't go. There's nothing to do with it. She was in title and escrow and real estate, and now is an organizer for some other company, putting sales teams together. It's got nothing to do with it. It has nothing to do with it. But I believe that they didn't have to work for it. Too many people, I've called it the microwave society for decades, probably 40 years. People want things now. It's like, well, I don't know, maybe yourself, you want to go out and make sure the snowblower starts because you told me where you're at. So you're probably going to get snow and you want to make sure it starts. Well, if it doesn't start, well, now what do I do? Some people don't have an idea. And of course, I never had a snowblower. We had a shovel and a tractor because it was on a farm, but we did a lot of shoveling snow. But I, I just think too many people are handed or given stuff. And we're raising twins. They're 8 years old. We've had them since they were 3 weeks old. We adopted them, and to me, they're spoiled. And part of it's my fault, my wife's fault. Part of it is other relatives. Belle, would you let her out? Thank you. Um, Sorry, had a dog that needed to get out. Caught in my office here, but it's just the fact that people people have become so dependent upon, instead of going and looking something up or reading a book and finding out about something, they take their cell phone and they look up on Google or they go to whatever, and they get their answer and then they think they know it all, but they've never experienced it. They got an answer. Now the answer may not even be right, but they got an answer. And from there, they just, I don't know.
How do you think you can help people start looking to develop that?
I Since podcasts have been out and YouTube's been out, I've gotten a lot of information. Number one, I used to read a lot of books and a lot of books, and I read about self-help. I read about sales. I learned about management. I learned about things, and then starting companies, I had to do it. I had no option. I mean, it's like when we started building homes 9 years ago, we quit 7 years ago. And in little over 6 years of actual building, we did 30 some $1 million. Not too bad. I mean, and we weren't trying to be big. It was my wife, myself, and a couple other people that worked three-quarter time. And but I think in to take technology today is look for podcasts, look for mindset, look for something that's go to YouTube and put in podcasts regarding um, whatever they're looking for or trying to get, or how do I do this or how do I do that. It's like uh, I've got a son that was a single dad, and he learned a lot about raising babies and stuff, or a baby, by going to YouTube. I mean, what it is what it is. So but I think that's not unless they just got somebody, and go out and talk to older people. I've got a gentleman that comes and visits me. He's I got a dog that needs to go outside. I'm sorry. I got If you can edit it out or something, whatever.
Here, I'll pause it. Hey, Matt.
I think okay. I think that things like on YouTube or like I say, podcasts, find out or oh, I know. I was mentioning a gentleman that comes in and sees me, and he's 54 years old, and he talked to my father-in-law, and my father-in-law sent him over, and he said, "Jay, I've got this problem, and I got this problem," and he introduced himself. Well, my father-in-law called me and said, "Hey, I got a guy named Gibbs who's going to come over and see you and ask you a couple of questions," and we got talking, and I said, "What prompted you to come over and talk to me about it?" And he said, "Well, your father-in-law said you've started several businesses and you've done quite a bit of this and that, and you've gotten patents and you've gotten trademarks and you've done certain things." And I find that talking to older folks, I learn stuff. I don't learn much when I talk to somebody that hasn't done it and thinks they know everything, you know. And he said, and I just don't feel right talking to 22-year-old people or 23-year-old people anyhow. But there's some young people out there that are really getting with it and really doing it. But I think that's a good thing, is go out and talk to people. So many people today, they get on their phone and they're, oh, I'll do this, or swipe left or swipe right, or they do this or they do that. And they don't take the time to physically work in. I spent a part of my corporate career with the Yellow Pages, 10 years. And that's when I broke my neck, was right after I started with, well, 5 months after started with the Yellow Pages. And I talked to everybody from people that pumped out sewers to people that had 5, 6, 8, 10, 12,000 people at at hospitals. I talked to a wide range of people about a lot of different subjects. And one thing that was interesting is I remember a gentleman up in Minneapolis area had a horizontal grinding and polishing company, and they did items that weighed 15 and 20 tons, and I couldn't grasp, how do you horizontally polish something like that? And what it was a machine that separated apart like this. They'd have a crane come in and put the part down on the bottom, and that part became magnetic. It would hold it. It would hold it in place just like it was part of it. And then the top part would grind it and 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 make it smooth as glass. And then they would take it, they would turn it over. The cranes would do their machine and they would set it the other direction. And by learning that, I learned a lot. And he bought a great Yellow Page program because he was in the oil industry, or worked a lot with the oil industry for valves and such all over the United States. Well, we were doing what they called the commercial business to business directories at the time, and he bought a big program. And what that taught me was that people, if I would have gone in and tried to tell him what he needed or what I had for him to offer him, he probably wouldn't have purchased it. He probably wouldn't have. But by me seeing what he had, understanding what he needed, the reason he could use our books, where they would take him, the areas we covered, Houston, Oklahoma, all the areas he needed, um, it came up with a phrase that I had. It was, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And when you think about that, it's really it says it all. It's like going to buy a car. You know, if somebody really knows what you're looking for, they may be able to direct you if you've given them enough information. But I don't know, car sales are kind of out anymore. I mean, you look on the internet and you buy it, and that's the price. You know,
Yeah.
so but
So you recently have written a book. Can you tell us about it?
the name of it's called The Strength Within You, and the subtitle is It's Always Too Soon to Quit. And it does cover some of my medical issues, but it really, I tried to promote more about what it takes to overcome the roadblocks and the setbacks and all the problems that I went through physically, but they all are applicable to real life, whether that's determination or grit, perseverance, all the words that we've used and talked about. And I I just think people realize, there's a lot of people out here, or quite a few people that have had a death experience, or they've had a bad accident. I mean, maybe when you were younger, if you or somebody that was in a motorcycle accident, and once they're in it, they've broken both their legs and some ribs, and they're really bad, but they come out of it, they get out of it. My two car accidents, though, they were very, very bad and violent compared to the broken neck and drowning. They bones heal. That my third degree burns heal. They get bone, skin grafts and such, but a broken neck doesn't heal. So I just, through the book, try to get the point across. You can't quit, and when you're doing something, try to go above and beyond. If somebody asks you to, I don't know, if you're doing bench presses, I don't know. I got to come up with something here. If you're doing bench presses and you can get 8 out, do 10, no matter what it takes. If you got to rest for a second or whatever, do 2 more. I used to say one more and one for the core. The core being the Marine Corps, of course. But if you think about it and you go do bench presses for the next, I don't know, 5 years, and you go 3 times a week and you do your numbers and you figure I've done this 2,000 times, and you did 2 more, one more and one for the core, you just did 4,000 extra bench presses that you never thought about because you did them just 2 at a time, just a little bit at a time, inch by inch. It's a cinch. Inch by inch, you can get a long way. But trying to take it yard by yard is very hard. It's like the old story. What is it? The tortoise and the hare. I mean, it's like
Yeah.
the tortoise won the race because it didn't try to win it all at once. It just kept plodding along, and it got there. So I think that more than anything is really it's what it's about, and it's going to do good. I've had a lot of people already request it and want it, and it's a good book to share. And it's not very long. It's like 140 pages, but you know, I I've just tried to do different things with my life to keep a little thing. I used to really be big into drag racing and stuff way back, long time ago. And so I eventually, I flipped a lot of cars. I probably flipped 550, 600 cars over the years. And I've got some cars in the museums now, and it's kind of cool to have that stuff. And it's just looking at something different you can do that keeps your interest. So, I've not always been paralyzed and sitting in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
You know,
Why did you decide to write it?
why did I decide to write it?
Yeah.
Because I had been told I should have write a book 50 years ago. People say, "My God, Jay, you're 23 and you've already been dead twice. You need to write a book about this." It's like, but if I had done it that many years ago, I would have missed a lot of my life. And there's group out of the West Coast, out of the Northwest, called the Pacific Institute, and I um, spoke in a class that the guy had in Tampa, Florida, briefly over 3 different days. Gosh, that's been about 7 or 8 years ago, and he came and visited me and did a LinkedIn interview, and he said, "You got to write a book. There's too many people out there that don't have the concept of major injuries, multiples of times, and all the surgeries it takes between them, or what happens." Because it's like, I mean, they took so much bone out of my left pelvis to rebuild my neck in 90. I was home. I was spent about 5 weeks, 4 or 5 weeks in the hospital. I got home, and 3 days later, I was going back to go to the restroom. And as I'm walking along, and I got a Philadelphia collar on up here, under my neck, and I'm all this, and I'm all cut open, big time. Yet, the stitches are in there, and I was on my crutches, and going into the bedroom. All of a sudden, I heard a pop, like an old M80 firecracker went off, and the pain just tore through me. Oh my God! Well, what had happened is they hadn't figured. They took so much bone out of my left pelvis. They hadn't thought about me dragging my right leg along because it was mostly paralyzed. Okay, and the whole front of my pelvis ripped off. It's called your iliac crest. It ripped off, came through my sweatpants, and the bone is sticking out like that far out of the front of my skin, and the blood's coming out. My wife ran in and said, "What was that?" And she goes, "Oh my God," and it's a long story, but the pain was it wasn't good.
Yeah.
It wasn't friendly, but I just think that it's I don't know. I just it was time to just do it. And he said, "Jay, you got to do it. You got to do it." And it was tough to do, Ryan, because I had to look back when I dictated it, and a lady wrote it up out of the Seattle area, actually. And when I read back in writing in the first revision, I cried. I had tears. I hated. I mean, it's hard for somebody that's younger or hasn't been through it. I've been trying to forget about, like, the car accident in the Marine Corps for 56 years. I mean, the guy that I was taking back to base, he died from a heart attack in May of this year, but he had burns over 60% of his body. His wife was holding the compress on his head from where he'd been beat real bad, and they'd sliced his head open and cut his ear half off and down into his neck. They missed his jugular, but I didn't know if he'd make it or not. He was bleeding bad. And when we hit the semi, the tire ripped loose. I was driving a 66 Ford Galaxy 500 XL. It went from 17 and a half feet to under 10 feet in length, like that. And the tire broke loose, bounced off the top, came through the rear of the rear deck, and bounced off the ceiling. Apparently, took the top back of her head off, and she slid up over the gear shift because she's sitting on the console, and she was in a coma 18 months and died. So I've got a lot of survivor's guilt. The guy that hit me that was drunk, I knew the guy. I mean, I didn't know that's who it was in the truck at the time. I didn't think, "Oh, here comes Ron," I mean, but I knew the guy, and he had a wife that they had a baby about 6, 7 months old. She was pregnant with another child, and once I got out of the hospital and I was ambulatory, I went by and paid my condolences, and I don't think many people would do that. I mean, I I'm not the one that caused it, but I still paid my condolences. It's a tough thing to do.
How can people get a hold of you?
Right? No, uh, no. I think just on my on the I've got a website out called neverquittrying.com, and it's still got a placeholder. They're working on it. As a matter of fact, they tried calling here when we went on the phone, but just J, my first name, at neverquittrying.com. That'll bring them through to me.
Okay, and I'll put that in the show notes too.
Okay.
Is there anything we haven't covered that you want to talk about?
I I don't, probably a whole lot, but at the same time, I don't think people 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 don't realize how short time is. If you got a bank account that's got $3,000 in it or whatever, you can check it online. You can go to the bank. You get a bank statement in the mail. You can see how much money you've got left, how much you've spent. But when you're conceived, the day you're conceived, you begin to die. Because the older you get, the longer you're on this earth, the closer you come to the time number of days that you've been given to be here. And I don't think in my heart that people have a real true value of how fast time goes, and the value of their life to help others until they've been dead or had a near death experience, and it will change your life. And I mean, I was fortunate enough my dad was a pilot. I mean, on the farm, we did a lot of agricultural spraying, spraying and seeding and stuff. And you all got it up where you're at. And, uh, so I figured my whole life I'd be a farmer and an agriculture pilot. Well, the Marine Corps kind of changed that for me. But yet I soloed and started flying when I was 14 years old. And if you want to do something bad enough, you'll do it. You'll figure out a way to do it. But no, I think we pretty well covered. I mean, you wanted, through the fire. I can't. I mean, I've died by drowning. I've been burned, third-degree burns up my leg, and so on, and whatnot. So, I mean, and when you say that, when I say that too, it's kind of weird because the three Marines that helped pull us out of the car and get us out and had to dig my face out of the steering wheel. I had 32 facial fractures because when you hit a steering wheel at 50 mile an hour, it's gone. And this was back before airbags and collapsible steering columns and everything else. And I I don't know. I'm just so very fortunate to be here.
Yeah,
And I don't think that people just need to realize how fortunate they are. That's all. That's all
yeah.
it is.
All right, final question. What is one
All right.
piece of advice you'd like to leave our listeners with about overcoming adversity?
I'm going to have to give you two. One I've already said is it's always too soon to quit. And the other one is a quote that's attributed quite often to Ralph Waldo Emerson, but it's simply this: the matters that lie behind us and the matters that lie before us are very small compared to what the matters are that lie within us. And if you take that into consideration, you can overcome a lot.
Yeah, great quote. Well, Jay, thank you for coming on here and telling us your story and sharing your insight with us.
Well, Ryan, I don't know that I've covered everything the way it needed to be covered, but hopefully somebody will get something out of this and move forward because there's I feel bad for some people that have minor things wrong with them, I and they can't overcome it, and I don't know any way to tell them, and that gets back to something you asked me before though, and you just got to get out and try. You got to get out and do it. It's just all it is. You got to reach down inside and find the strength within you, which is the name of the book, and work on it from there. Maybe it's pain, maybe it's anger, maybe it's
Yeah.
the way you were raised. But that's it, brother.
Yeah. Well, guys, that's going
Uh,
to be all the time we have here today. Remember, the only way to get
uh,
what you want is to go through the fire.
hey, we'll see you later.